I want to talk a little bit about Trump and his impact on the African American community here in the United States. I think that we already know that I think they said 80 to 90% of African Americans voted for the Biden Kamala Harris ticket. But he had an increase in African American males, that is to say Trump, voting for Trump, an increase that he didn't have previously during his first election period. I think that some of the attributes that Trump seemed to possess would have benefited the African American community. Now, all the drama with Trump and his tweets and his comments to white nationalists or white supremacists or whatever words you deem necessary to use were definitely inappropriate. And I'm also not here to say that I support Donald Trump, but I am here to say that some of the things that Trump was trying to put in place and maybe even did put in place would have or will benefit, if they're carried out, the African American community. One of the things noted was that he was trying to get a lot of the American corporations to do business here in this country. I think we need to understand that states like Michigan, states like Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, those are the Rust Belt. And the Rust Belt basically means our industrial part, our manufacturing, which has long been outsourced overseas, which has impacted a lot of African Americans. A lot of African Americans migrated to the North for those type of jobs, to work in the plants, to work in the factories, where they were making a very, very good living. And then somewhere around the mid-'80s or so, the transition began all throughout the 90s and 2000, where those manufacturing plants, the General Motors, etc., the Whirlpools, were outsourcing the jobs overseas and leaving the plants in the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, and the North Midwest behind, Michigan included. And there are a lot of black people that moved there. So now what we have is the impact of that. So we have Detroit that's on its way back after experienced the devastation of manufacturing jobs being outsourced overseas. And we have the Rust Belt still swinging in the trees, so to speak, in terms of survival. And that's one of the reasons we see the type of violence, I believe, in Chicago. A lot of people in the Rust Belt don't have the same quality job that they had in the past, especially in the 70s and ending in the mid-'80s, where these jobs that were factory-based, where these black people migrated from the South to get these jobs over 20, 30, even 40-year period to the North, these jobs were able to send their children off to college. And I don't think enough of that has been emphasized. So what by Trump trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to America would have benefited the African American community greatly. The other thing is the H-1B visas. I don't think a lot of people realize that there were a lot of black males. Now, keep in mind, in IT, there's still not enough females, black or white, in the IT fields. But before there was so many H-1B visas being issued, there were a lot of black males being employed in IT. And IT is one of those things where you can get a degree in computer science or not and still be successful financially and take care of your family. So when Trump was trying to, I think, pretty much lower the number of H-1Bs entering into the country, it may have had an impact on the IT community here in the United States, the Googles, if you will, the Microsofts, etc. But they would have had to look within their own home, and that home would be here in the United States. That can cause them to want to provide free training, not to say they're not doing something like that, but within the inner cities, in order to train people, especially black people, black Americans, into the IT world, into these IT jobs. So there were some benefits to having this Trump ideology and the plans that he had for America. It's unfortunate, I think and believe, that a lot of Americans didn't see that because they couldn't look past his tweets. They couldn't look past his commentary. Now, I'm not saying every policy that Trump had in place was for the good of African American people, but I am definitely saying that a lot of things that Trump was trying to do would have benefited the African American community. African Americans tend to vote Democratic in this country for some period of time, for a long period of time at this point. And with that being said, we're not a monolithic group, so why should we just be voting just for one particular party? They don't have to do anything. They don't have to dance around. They don't have to ask us what our needs are, what we want, because they already expect that we're going to vote, the majority of us vote Democratic, period, point blank period. Whether they're promising us the 40 acres and the mule and reparations or not, doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. And that's something that we have to take a look at when we're voting. There are other parties out there other than the Republicans and the Democrats. The Green Party has put some things in place that are on the table, but not enough parties or not enough people vote green. But there's other political parties, is my point with this. So all I want to say is that there were benefits to the African American community by having Trump in office. That's notwithstanding the white supremacists or the nationalists that he appeared to cater to through his tweets. But we as the African American community have to look past emotions and start thinking logically. And logically speaking, if we bring back jobs to America, manufacturing jobs, you're going to have more black people with a high school education able to take care of their families. The Rust Belt should be able to recover from that. If we have less H-1B visas in the IT space, then they're going to have to employ more African Americans. And in fact, there were more African Americans in the IT space before the H-1B visa program was opened up very widely. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have immigrants. We certainly should. But we also have to think about, as African American people, when we have other parties taking jobs that could possibly we could be trained for, then there has to be a balance with that. And I think that the Trump administration would have been one to offer that kind of balance. But a lot of times we're voting with our hearts and not with our heads. I'm not here to discuss whether or not Kamala Harris is black or white or Asian or whatever. I really don't care. But I am here to say that there were some Trump effects that could have impacted African American people in a positive way. And that's my comment.